Welcome to A Slob Comes Clean, the podcast. I'm Dana White. I blog almost every day as Noni over at aslobcomesclean.com. Noni is short for anonymous because that is where I share my personal deslobification process. It's the completely honest and never-ending story of my getting my own house under control. And as I figure out ways to do that, I share the truth about cleaning and organizing strategies that actually work in real life. This is podcast number 41. I almost said 31, but it's actually 41. So, little fact here, if I keep on going with podcasts, I will have always had more podcasts than my age. Whatever. That makes no sense. But anyway, so this is podcast number 41. I'm calling it Defining Success because it's kind of based on just some questions I've gotten recently. And on the fact that I finally completed year 2 in ebook form. What that means, for those of you who are new, is people are forever reading my blog backwards. And that's actually what I recommend to people. But it didn't start that way. It started in that when I first started A Slob Comes Clean, I didn't think anyone was going to want to read it. I mean, I couldn't imagine that because I thought I was the only person in the whole entire world that had these issues that I seemed to have, and I didn't think anyone else struggled the way that I did. So, but I started this blog, and it was my way to get my self-focused, my home under control, thinking that, okay, well, once my house is under control, then I'll start my real blog, the one about things that I'm actually good at. Anyway, I did start to get some readers there in the beginning because I did want readers, even though I didn't tell anyone in my real life that I had this blog. I did want readers just because that's how I am. Anyway, but I'd been going probably a month or so, and I had a couple of people who seemed to be coming back a lot. And I was looking at my analytics, which you can only tell certain things from it. You can't tell like details about anybody, but I could see that someone was reading backwards. Like they were reading every single post of mine, that they had gone back to the beginning and started from there. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then I started to see that happen again and again. And I thought, well, okay, that actually makes sense, because if somebody wants to see, what I've been going through, then they're going to read it in order. Well, over time, people started to ask me questions like, how do I get started? Or what do I do? Or I want to get my own home under control and please help me. Well, for a long time, I just said, I can't help you. I'm just barely hanging on as it is on my own. And so I started recommending that. Other people had just kind of done it on their own, but I started recommending to people that, why don't you go back and read from the beginning so that you can see the process that I've been through. And so people do that. And I've constantly got people who are reading all the way through. I know lots and lots of people who will email me when they're finally finished and say, I just finished. And so that happens all the time. But then I started getting requests, and they're not like constant, but I consistently getting requests that could I please put the blog into an ebook form so that people could read the whole thing from start to finish, starting back in 2009. Without having to be online, because that is a definite hard thing. I mean, for me personally, the only time I have to really sit down and just read is maybe in the car. Thankfully, I don't get car sick. Or, in some random place. So this allows people to read it on their Kindle, or they can just read it on their laptop or their desktop or whatever without actually having to be online. And, I know that's a hindrance for some people. So I started doing that. But I'm doing it year by year. So year 1's ebook went out, I think in May. And then year 2 just went out last week. The reason it took me so long is that I have so many other things to do that I only let myself work on it during my daughter's gymnastics class. And she didn't have that all summer. So I had someone else actually put it into a Word doc, but then I go in and I take, completely irrelevant affiliate links or whatever out now. So that is what I have been working on. And so I put that out year 2, so that is available. I'll link to that in the show notes for podcast number 41. But just doing that has been really interesting to me, because there's sometimes some things that I don't remember that I wrote, or I don't remember that I said something, or I realize something, and now I either look back and go, oh, I realized that, and I've completely unrealized it since then, or I look back and I go, oh, that's right. That's very natural to me now, but I was really figuring it out from thin air, it seemed like, back in the beginning or whatever. So it's really interesting to me to do that. And real quickly, before I keep going, don't forget that if you want the show notes, links to the things that I mention here, you can go to aslobcomesclean.com/podcasts with an S on the end. And in that, you can scroll down and click on the podcast number, which is 41, to get to the specific post that has the links to the things that I've talked about in this podcast. If you get there and number 41 is not directly linked, just go down to the bottom and click on see all my podcasts here, and it'll be there because it exists. If you're listening, it exists. So I'm going to talk about that today because I got a question from a reader, which I thought was a really good question, and it kind of was similar to some other questions I've gotten recently. And specifically, it was from someone who has been reading backwards and, reading from the beginning. And like I said, the reason that I recommend that to everyone is just simply that I think it's a good idea to get a realistic picture. I'm 5 years in, and my house is not always perfect the way I thought it was going to be. But I've made huge strides, and I'm really thankful that I've been working and changing my ways and changing how our home operates for the last 5 years. I'm very thankful for that. It's been totally, completely worth it, even though it's different than I thought it would be 5 years down the road once I understood and got it and had the light bulb moment that I thought was going to change everything. So here's part of this question from a reader. And she says, I anticipate it will always be a struggle, and there will always be fantastic excuses for me. I'm just wondering, do you normally manage to complete most of the tasks, or do you normally find yourself struggling? She says, it would be interesting and encouraging, whichever is the case, to have a post about how you normally get on. Say, pick a school week and write a post about how many days you manage to close cabinet doors / run the dishwasher. She said, it's obvious that your home is much more homely than it used to be, and as such, that's encouragement. Either way, either the decluttering is such a big step forward that the non-negotiables can be negotiated away occasionally, or that they become more habitual. And I would say yes to all of that. By the way, it's someone in the UK, so some of the wording is different, which I love. Like, I read a lot of things that are written by people who are from the UK. So anyway, but my point is that, yes, everything she said there, when she says, it's obvious your home is much more homely or homey than it used to be, and as such, that's encouragement. Yes, my home is 5 years later 10,000 bajillion times better than it used to be. But it's not perfect. Okay? As she said, either the decluttering is such a big step forward that the non-negotiables can be negotiated away occasionally, or they become more habitual. Yes, to all of that. Okay? I talk about decluttering a lot because decluttering is key. The clutter threshold that everybody has is different for each person. I have realized for me to function and to have a house that stays under control better, I need to tend toward minimalism. I was a maximumist to the extreme before. I had one of everything, and if I was going to have one of everything, then I might as well have 23 of everything. And I simply had too much stuff. I could not handle that amount of stuff. And so decluttering, the momentum of that I've talked about in previous podcasts, has been huge. Decluttering makes it easier to do my daily tasks. She asks, can the non-negotiables, which is what I initially in the beginning called each task that I would add to my list by week, which is part of the reason why I recommend people read from the beginning, because I don't think you should start with this big long list. I think you should, well, what I did personally is I started doing the dishes until it didn't feel completely unnatural and weird to do the dishes anymore. And then once that started to feel normal to me, then I moved on and tackled another habit until that felt normal. Generally, it would take about a week. But instead of just starting with this huge long list of all the things you should do and trying to run through those every day, to me, the key is make it feel normal. However, habits, even though they now feel normal and they now do occur to me more because I do them so much more consistently, habits like this for me are not mindless. All my bad habits are mindless. I will find myself in the pantry grabbing the box of Cheez-Its and think, I don't even know how I got here. Not like completely that way, but really, I think, oh, wait, this just happened. I just went to the pantry and got the Cheez-Its or the animal crackers or whatever, whatever it was that it just happens. I find oh my goodness, did I just eat that? For real? Like, I've been telling myself I wasn't going to eat that, and all of a sudden I just ate that. Those are mindless habits. I have not gotten to that point with all the good habits, all the things I'm supposed to do. Those don't just happen without me ever thinking about it, unfortunately. But they are easier, and they're not a huge stress and a huge drag on me like they used to be, because it's like, oh, well, now I have a realistic perspective of the fact that, yeah, it really only takes me 4 to 5 minutes to load the dishwasher, 3 to 4 minutes to unload it. Come on. Because over time, those things have become more natural, and I have done them enough to have an understanding of what they're like. I don't blow them up in my mind as something that they're not. I look at them realistically and I go, okay, so yes, that part of the habit, but as far as me, I have never emptied the dishwasher and gone, oh my goodness, I just emptied the dishwasher. I had no idea I was doing that, and I think that's what I expected, honestly, was I really thought it was going to be a light bulb moment. Something was going to click in my head finally that had never clicked before. And the simple clicking was going to mean that my house was always going to be clean. Unfortunately, that's not true. I have to clean my house or it doesn't get clean. I know. It's like mind-blowing rocket science, for real. But that, I think part of it was I've changed my perspective on what to expect in that. So just some things along those lines about what I see when I go back and I look through those first several years of the blog, when I was just starting to try to figure things out and I was adding things to my non-negotiables list. And, one of the things she said was, how many days do you manage to close the cabinet doors? Well, I'm going to be completely honest with you right here. You can plaster all over the internet that I am a total fraud, because I will be honest with you and tell you that it is rare that I consciously say and check off of my list that I'm going to close the cabinet doors. Okay? Because here's the thing about me and lists. They're great and everything. And a checklist is so great to get me going and having the momentum and staying focused and all those kind of things. That's why I really do recommend a printable checklist. I have those. Those are free printables on my site. I'll link to that in the show notes. But a printable checklist is great, but my life goes on and I either lose the checklist or I run out of paper or I run out of ink in my printer, or I can't find a pen that works, or I can't find my pencil sharpener to use a pencil. And so going through my list and actually physically reading each item and checking it off, that is a great way for me to restart and get refocused. And I've done that many times, but I don't do that on a regular basis. Therefore, like in 28 Days to Hope for Your Home, which is the ebook that I wrote that helps people get started out from any point, I focus on the 4 basic habits that are going to absolutely make or break your home. They make or break my home. Those are the 4 habits that I have to do daily. But I don't always do all of them daily. Sometimes I can only get one of them done. And that one is to do the dishes, which sounds so ridiculously simple. that really, I mean, it sounds so insanely like, are you kidding me? This person thinks she has something of value to say and she's telling me to do the dishes. But the truth is, my mindset was always to see the big, huge project stuff, partly because I like big projects. I mean, really, I like something where I can step back and go, ta-da, it's done. But that's not how it works. That's not how this stuff works. What do I need to do when my house is a complete disaster? I need to do the dishes. And when I do the dishes and then I do the dishes again the next day before they're a disaster again, then I'm able to make traction and make actual progress on the overall house. But I guess my point is, okay, so like when I wrote 28 Days to Hope for Your Home, one of my blogger friends read it and she was like, oh, I just love this. She goes, but you know what you need to do? You need to do printables to go with it. Printables of these 4 habits so that people, checklists and printables. And I was like, what? Because I just knew that wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I thought about it and realized why it was that I did not want to do that. And I realized that I need some habits to be so simple, I don't need a checklist. That's why I really focus on those 4 habits. And the amazing thing is those 4 habits will keep your home or bring your home out of disaster status. I've done it many times. I have like the evidence to prove it as you read through the blog. But my point is that sometimes we want to make it overcomplicated. Like for me, thinking, okay, so what is going to happen if I don't do this, this, and this every day? Am I able to say, okay, well then I'm going to do this Monday, Wednesday? No, it's better for me to just go, hey, every day I have to do the dishes. The days when I have a little bit, oh, okay, well then I need to make sure I do the dishes and I sweep the kitchen. And, oh, okay, well, and then, all right, I've got another, okay, I'm going to do the dishes. I'm going to sweep the kitchen. I'm going to go check the bathrooms for clutter to make sure that they're ready to go. And if somebody's going to come over, I can wipe it down in a couple seconds. Okay, then, all right, then I'm going to make sure I do my 5-minute pickup, which 5-minute pickup, I honestly put that before the bathroom clutter a lot of times. It's like, okay, if I'm feeling out of control, we do a 5-minute pickup and that's it, But my point is sticking to those basics and realizing that those basics make such a bigger impact than ever. Because that was the thing when I first started the blog, and this is what you can see through the process of reading, is that I was shocked and amazed that just doing the dishes had such an impact on my house. It's hard to believe that until you actually experience it. And like I had a homeschool mom. I don't homeschool, but she had written in and she said, okay, I just get so frustrated that, we're home all day and we're busy doing school. And so things get, out of control so much more quickly. I said, well, why don't you add in 3 or 4 5-minute pickups throughout the day? Okay, let's stop everything, do a 5-minute pickup. Well, she wrote back, and this, I'll link to this in the show notes, but she wrote back and said, thank you so much or I guess that she had been doing that. Maybe she did it before I even said, I don't remember. Anyway, but she said that had made a huge impact because before she had all these chores assigned to her children and things that were detailed. Oh my goodness, I so get that. That was me before I started the blog, just trying to organize everything before I got started and figure out these are going to be the things that I'm going to need to do. Instead, what made a difference was just actually doing something, anything, even something teeny tiny that didn't even seem worth putting on the list, But she said doing those 5-minute pickups, instead of saying, okay, at such and such time, you're going to do this, you're going to go sweep under the table and you're going to do this and this. She said, okay, let's do a 5-minute pickup. And doing those several times throughout the day made a bigger impact on her home. And then what was neat about it is she talks about how doing that has freed her up to then have the energy and the time to do big decluttering jobs, which are then making bigger progress in our house. And that is how this all works. And that's what you can see when you read the blog backwards. But so a few things that I noticed as I was going back through were, okay, one of the things that I had as a non-negotiable at one point was to wipe down the bathrooms every single day. I know there are many experts who say to do this, and they are right. I mean, come on, their houses are perfect all the time. I've realized maybe I don't ever need to expect perfect. If I can do, wow, that's so much better, then I'm happy. But, so I tried that. I think I tried it I've talked about it a lot over time until I kind of finally gave up on it. But, here's my problem, honestly. Wiping down the bathrooms grosses me out. It just completely grosses me out. And so the timing of it was really important to me. Like I had to do it before my shower. But then if I needed to take my shower before my kids got up that day, then I needed to go and wipe down all 3 bathrooms, which we have 2.5 actually, but all 3 bathrooms before I took my shower, which meant going into my kids' bathroom, which is connected to one of their rooms. And then that's going to wake them up. And, what sane mother ever does that? So, it was all these like, I just kept running. And finally, I checked the bathrooms for clutter. And if I can check the bathrooms for clutter, then when I do need to wipe it down, because somebody's coming over, I can do that really quickly because I don't first have to declutter it. Or when it's time to clean the bathroom, I can actually just clean the bathroom and not have to first completely declutter it. So simplifying down to the absolute most basic is my gift to you. Okay. Other things that I tried to do that I look back and I go, as you know, if you've listened to any other podcasts or read my blog or anything, basically, you know that laundry was a big deal for me to finally get under control. I do have it under control. It is Tuesday. And I finished, start to finish, completely my laundry last night. It's done. And I'm super proud of myself for that. But laundry, I tried. I went weeks of trying it and then trying to adjust it and everything, of trying to do the 1 load a day. I couldn't do the 1 load a day, but the 1 load a day works great for some people. It didn't work for me at all. I just kept rewashing the same load over and over and over because it would stay in the washer. If you find yourself in that situation, just pour some vinegar on the clothes to rerun the load, and that will help with the musty smell that that happens when you leave a laundry in the washing machine too long. Other things I've noticed. Oh yeah, I swore at one time that, which I shouldn't say the word swore because hopefully I didn't say that. Maybe I did. I promised myself or said to myself I was never going to put anything on the dining table again. I was like, no, I just can't handle it. I can't put one thing on there. It turns into a pile. Yeah. I do. Yeah, I didn't stick with that. It's a great thought. And I think having that thought and realizing how much of a landslide happens or an avalanche or whatever happens when I start randomly laying things on there helps me view it differently and keeps me from doing that as haphazardly, and therefore means that it never gets quite as bad. I shouldn't say never. It does. But it doesn't get quite as bad quite as often, so that I can clean it off more quickly when I need to. But I don't. I didn't stick with that. My laundry room was organized. That's one of my posts that's been popular for a long time is, yay, my laundry room is organized. Well, I've had to declutter it and organize it about 3 times since then. And that has been, when I say defining success in the name of this podcast, to me, that's key right there. I used to think cleaning, decluttering. Now, if you would have told me and I would have talked through it, I would have, logically said, of course I understand that. But I don't know that I fully did, because I really kept thinking there was going to be a point where I was done, or a point where decluttering a space that I was going to, if I did it good enough, if I did it correctly, then I would never have to do it again. But that's just not how I roll. That's not how my personality is. Things just randomly appear in spaces. And giving myself permission to go back and re-declutter and go back and tackle that space again and not say, well, what's the point? Because it obviously didn't last time. So I failed last time. So why should I even try this time? Getting over that and just saying the real success is consistently going back and tackling the same problem over and over, because we live in our homes and we grow in our homes. And there's new stuff coming in all the time, as long as your kids are growing and changing. And that's just part of it, is that it's never going to be finished. And accepting that it's never going to be finished is success to me. And being okay with that fact, and being okay with, you know what, I mean, not that I don't get incredibly frustrated about the state of my master bedroom right now. I get terribly frustrated over that. But to realize, well, that doesn't mean that, what's the point? I'm just not going to do it. It means, okay, last time it didn't take as long as I thought it would, and this time I'm going to go tackle it again. And every single time that I do that, it takes less time than the time before, because I did it the time before. And so it's not, 2 years worth. It's only 1 year's worth of chaos or craziness or whatever. Other things. Okay, so I talked about the basics, getting down to the absolute most basics. That's what it's about. So I hope that I'm answering that question at all. But how many times in a week do I manage to close the cabinet doors? I don't know. I honestly don't know, because I don't have a printed out copy of my list this week, and I probably have it in several weeks or even more than that. But do I run the dishwasher? Absolutely. That is the one I have to do. I run the dishwasher every single night. And I know if you don't have a dishwasher, that it's natural to say, well, if I had a dishwasher, I would run it, except that I haven't always had a dishwasher, and having a dishwasher did not keep my kitchen clean. Running it has kept my kitchen clean. And I know plenty of people who don't have dishwashers that their kitchen is clean, because it's really not a matter of running the dishwasher every night. It's a matter of doing the dishes every night and making that the thing. But that is my do or die habit. If I don't do that, things go to chaos. They go to absolute craziness. And I have to do that one. Okay, so defining success, I will never have arrived. That's just not going to happen. And that's partly me realizing that and accepting that is success to me, just realizing that and keeping on going. Things that I do consider a success is that I have focused on laundry enough that laundry is under control. It's not perfect. Sometimes my laundry day takes me 2 or 3, 4 days to actually finish, but I've found a way to do laundry that works in our home for my personality type, and we keep it under control. My kids now know how to clean bathrooms. That's great. Even though I wanted to be the mom, I imagined myself to be the mom who involved them every single time in doing that. But instead, I'm the mom who, has to have her own ways to keep herself reminded to clean the bathrooms. And so, adding to that, trying to remind myself to clean the bathrooms at a time where everybody is available as the kids get older and they're doing crazy, going football practice and things like that. Trying to remember, when remembering for me is hard enough, trying to remember while the kids are home and available to do it with me. That's not going to happen. So, but as I've talked about in the Teaching Kids to Clean podcast and in the ebook that I have on that, focus time, like just taking a day in the summer when I randomly say, you know what, it's time to clean the bathrooms and the kids are home. Let's go clean the bathrooms. I'm going to teach you how to do that. Being focused and purposeful in those times has paid off. And my kids now, I can say, go clean the bathroom, and they know what to do. And they can do a somewhat decent job depending on random circumstances and weather and whatever. That is, so that's a huge success to me. The fact that my kids know what a 5-minute pickup is, and they know what an impact it can have on our house. The fact that they see a messy room and they actually say the words, wow, we need to do a 5-minute pickup. Or, hey, Mom, I really like my room clean, so I'm going to do a 5-minute pickup every night. Do they? Not necessarily. But the fact that they know that and they understand that and they know that that is what can make such a huge impact, that's success to me. And then I get down to, as I'm about to finish, what was my real goal before I started the blog? What was my real huge frustration? Yes, it was a huge frustration to me that I hadn't been able to kick this problem just by focusing on it, that it was a constant reoccurring problem that seemed to be something I would never be able to solve. But what really made me crazy was that I couldn't open my front door. I couldn't have people in my home unexpectedly. I couldn't be the one to randomly volunteer to host some sort of an event or a get-together or whatever. And if it came up and I did volunteer, it was usually while my heart was beating really, really quickly, and I, was thinking, well, I can only volunteer to have people over if I've got 2 whole weeks to block out to get my house under control before I can let anyone in the front door. So if that was the main thing that was my frustration, then I've succeeded, because I can have someone over now I could host a party in 4 hours. Not a perfect party, and somebody else would have to make the food. But I would be willing to have people come over for a real, actual event in 4 hours if you gave that to me. Why? Because the dishes are already done, and I don't have to spend 3.5 of those hours in the kitchen washing everything that I own. Those are pretty much already done. Maybe I need to run the dishwasher one time just for the things that are sitting out, from breakfast and lunch or whatever. But yeah, the dishes are already done. There's not clutter everywhere because I've decluttered so much, and because we consistently do 5-minute pickups. I have people over every Sunday night for our home groups, for our church. So I consistently have people over. But here's the other thing. I've changed my perspective on what my house needs to look like in order to open the door. I am more willing to have someone over when it's not perfect yet, because I've shifted my focus and realized, first of all, there's a lot of people who are not perfect. Now, it may seem, and I do know some people that I think your house, in my mind, is perfect, even when I show up on a random Tuesday morning. But there are enough people out there whose homes are not perfect that me showing that you're more important to me than my house being absolutely perfect is a way for me to show love to that person. And maybe it's going to help them feel better about their own home. And it's going to help them be more willing to have other people in their home. So partly, well, I would say a big, huge part of the reason why I'm willing to have people over is that we have less clutter, so it gets less out of control, because we are consistent in a lot of our tasks. No, not every single thing on the non-negotiables printable list, but on so many of them, just doing anything consistently makes a huge difference. The fact that dishes are done. Yes, the house is in so much better shape, so I'm willing to have people over. But at the same time, I'm willing to have people over to a house that's not quite perfect. And not that it ever was perfect, but you know what I mean. And that truly is success. So what is it that you're aiming for? Like, what is it that you really, truly want? And how can you make that happen? Because that's what matters, is how do you define success in your house? Is it perfection? Well, then maybe you need to, rethink that. But for me, I was able to rethink that after gaining some traction in the house through my basic habits, and after just having people over consistently. It does me wonders to have the same people over every single week, because they become more like family. And when they're more like family, I'm like, hey, you know what? Y'all know I'm not perfect. I mean, come on. A lot of them, all of them, I guess, know about my blog. They know I'm not perfect. So why am I trying to pretend like I am? I mean, come on. And none of us are perfect. And being imperfect lets other people feel free to be themselves. And those are the people that you like. They're the ones who let you feel like you can be yourself. So I'm going to end there. This was podcast number 41. I would love questions that you have, if you could send them to me via email that you'd like me to answer in future podcasts. I would also love feedback. I had one of you mentioned recently that you were having a hard time hearing, that the podcast seemed really quiet and you had to turn it all the way up. I would love to know any kind of technical issues like that. If you could just shoot me an email at aslobcomesclean@gmail.com. Just let me know because that helps me a lot. And if you like the podcast, I know I'm just being blatant here. If you like it, if you don't like it, send me an email. If you like it, please leave a review in iTunes because that helps me so much. And again, year 1 and year 2 are available in ebook form. So if you're not able to read, if you're not able to read online, but that interests you to read the blog backwards from the very beginning, then that would be great. Those are available now. Or you can just go read it for free on the blog. And I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.